Councilmember Steckler,
Here.
Councilmember Allison,
Here.
Councilmember Duque,
Here.
Councilmember Paddock.
Here.
Councilmember Cavalieri notified me that he is on the East Coast attending to family matters, so can we have a motion to excuse, please?
Use Councilmember Cavalieri.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 13-0. Before we get started, for those online, please bear with us. Technology has failed us, so we're going old school with the computers here. So just bear with us. And council, I don't have my monitor working, so I'm just, you'd have to jump and shout and wave your hands if you want to speak, or you just be selected tonight. So for audience, anyone in the audience like to address the council? Okay, Joe, is there a microphone that's working, or gonna have to come up here?
Here's your microphone.
Barb Heidel, 1401 144th Place, Southeast Mill Creek. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I wish to express my gratitude to the Public Works Department, especially Tracy, for promptly handing some very rather offensive graffiti on a box along Mill Creek Boulevard. I truly appreciate the quick response in handling it. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson.
Go ahead, Joe. Name, address, and opinion.
Will Nelson, 14925 29th Drive Southeast.
No, hold on a second.
I don't know what's going on.
You can go ahead. We can hear you now.
I can't understand you anyway.
You can go ahead, Will.
Go ahead.
149 Will Nelson, 14925 29th Drive Southeast, Mill Creek. Regarding the residential portal and the mailer that the city appears to be going to send out, if they haven't been printed up yet, is there any way to further emphasize the link to the survey for the technologically and challenged people, specifically old duffers like me? A suggestion. I don't have a problem with it, but I'm not sure other people my age will. And regarding the middle housing mentioned on the card or the mailer, is the term middle housing going to be incorporated into the comprehensive plan? And if so, what does that mean? Does that mean that if some enterprising developer shows up and says, I'm merely implementing your middle housing program, that we're then stuck with something that we may not like or want or don't need? And I would refer to such things as a developer's concept of architectural excellence, which appears to be pastels of different colors painted on rather plain buildings. Or does it mean that we would have to accept subsidized housing? And I would hope, if that is the case, that or not the case, that we get a full explanation of what the provisions for middle housing would mean in the comprehensive plan update. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Anyone else online like to address the council? I'm not seeing any, so we'll have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Before we get into the substance, I've got a couple proclamations to read tonight. The first is in honor of Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Bear with me, this one's a bit long. So this is a proclamation of the city of Mill Creek. Whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage AAPIH Month is a period for the duration of the month of May, recognizing the contributions and influence of Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Americans to the history, culture, and achievements of our United States. And whereas the first 10 days were chosen to coincide with two important milestones in Asian Pacific American history: the arrival in the United States of the first Japanese immigrants on May 7th, 1843, and contributions of Chinese workers to the building of the Transcontinental Railroad completed May 10th, 1869. And whereas in 1992, the United States Congress expanded the observance to a month-long celebration. Recent hate crimes and acts of violence against Asian Pacific Islander citizens has caused and given us the opportunity to reflect on the biases that still exist in our society today. The City of Mill Creek is proud to recognize these culturally significant contributors to the cause of freedom and prosperity in our nation. And whereas today more than 21 million Asian American Pacific Islanders live in the United States and through their actions make America a more vibrant, prosperous, and secure nation. And whereas Asian American and Pacific Islanders have distinguished themselves as leading researchers in science, medicine, and technology, and set the pace for work ethic in our nation. And whereas tens of thousands of Asian American and Pacific Islanders have fought and continue to fight for the cause of freedom in the United States Armed Services, both past and present. And whereas Mill Creek's population is roughly 20% Asian American and Pacific Islander and includes devoted community members who serve as artists, business owners, educators, healthcare professionals, first responders, and other professional groups and personnel. And whereas while we celebrate the achievements and contributions of Asian Americans that enrich our history, society, and culture, we must also acknowledge the additional hard work and determination that individuals must put forth to be heard and seen, and that these additional efforts are a result of inequitable institutional and systemic injustices, such as those most recently manifested in racist attacks on Asian Americans during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas we, the City of Mill Creek, believe the injustices to any race, religion, color, or creed is detrimental to the cause of freedom and inclusion in our community. Now, therefore, Brian Holtzclaw, the mayor of the City of Mill Creek, on behalf of the City Council, we hereby proclaim the month of May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and ask our community to join us in celebration this Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. And our other proclamation tonight is our annual proclamation for Music for Life. And this one is much shorter, but no less important. Proclamation of the City of Mill Creek. Whereas the benefits of participation in instrumental music at any age can last a lifetime. And whereas music education is an integral part of a well-rounded education that prepares students for success in life by teaching teamwork and discipline. And whereas musical education helps facilitate learning in other subjects and enhances children's life skills. And whereas the cost of owning or renting an instrument is a barrier preventing students from low-income families from participating in instrumental music. And whereas many adults have lovingly used musical instruments stored in their garages or attics that they no longer use. And whereas Music for Life is a nonprofit organization that repaired and provided ready-to-play musical instruments to participating public schools for use by students in need since 2007. And whereas Music for Life has provided hundreds of musical instruments to children in Everett Public Schools, including over 40 to those attending Jackson High School and Heatherwood Middle School in Mill Creek to date. Now, therefore, I, Brian Holtzclaw, the mayor of the City of Mill Creek, on behalf of the City Council, do recognize the great work of Music for Life and designate the month of May 2023 as for Life Month. Okay. I'm done reading through that. Martin, you want to introduce the Northshore Senior Center? Come on up.
All right, thanks. All right, thank you, Mayor. I have the pleasure to introduce Nathan Phillips, who is the CEO of the North Shore Senior Center. I had the opportunity to meet with Nathan probably about a month ago. We talked about kind of North Shore, where they're going, kind of what his thoughts about his programs. And I also invited him back at some point in the future to provide us some feedback on or contribute to our discussions as we start discussing the future of our DRCC properties, given his expertise in senior development. So, Nathan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members for having me. My name's Nathan Phillips. I'm the CEO of the Northshore Senior Center. Northshore Senior Center, of course, serves Mill Creek with many programs and our facilities, including the Mill Creek Senior Center at the Vintage Park Development. I have all these beautiful slides and graphs that I'm going to share with you today, and we're in council chambers right now with the screen down. So I will try to describe them as I go through this presentation a little bit for the folks who can't necessarily see them up. But to start with, as Mill Creek is grappling with its strategic planning right now and deciding what to do and how to program the DRCC properties, we thought it might be useful to share some of the information we've been mulling over at Northshore Senior Center. As we've come out of the pandemic, we're seeing that the so-called senior sector is rapidly changing. Folks are living longer. The senior sector is a bigger proportion of the population. And what we used to call seniors now is a pretty diverse group with really different expectations and ambitions for the communities they live in. In fact, in the US, we're about to experience a really massive demographic change that's really important to consider, or for cities can consider, as you're making strategic planning and programming decisions. So for those of you who can't see, I'm putting a graph up on the presentation that's called a population age diagram, and it's kind of like, this is from 1962, and I hope you'll indulge me for a minute while I kind of talk about some context and some age demographics. This population age diagram is from 1962. It shows at the bottom young people under age 18, and then there's a lighter section in the middle that's kind of called working age adults, and there's a little peak at the top that describes what used to be called, or what we call, seniors. This is important. Back in the 50s, actually, is when we kind of invented the term seniors. We also invented the term teens, because demographics in the country changed at that time. We started to think of things in terms of kids, teens, working adults, and seniors. And that's a thing that's worked for us for a long time. But as you can see, our demographics in the country have started to change. So you can see in these age diagrams, it goes from being a pyramid to start to look more and more like a column on the bottom with a pyramid on the top. This shows 1962, 1982, and 2002, and you can kind of see how the population has changed from an age pyramid to more of a column. People are living longer, working longer, and now people are working longer and have more wealth and have more relevancy as they age. If you look at today's population pyramid, this is a side-by-side of the 60s compared to now. And today in the United States and in the whole world, people in their 80s are actually the fastest growing age demographic in the entire country. This actually is one more slide showing some population age charts. The graph on the very, very right shows what's projected for 2042. Researcher Bradley Sherman, and I'm totally stealing from all of his research in this presentation. He is coined the term the super age to describe some of the profound social shifts that happen in societies when 20% of the population is over the age 65. The US is expected to hit that point in 2030. And as you can see from that diagram on the very right, when you look how age is spread out there, those old terms of kids, teens, working age adults, and seniors starts to lose its relevancy. In fact, what's true in America is also true in Mill Creek. Washington State actually is about 14% of the population is over 65. And that's about the same. It's about true for Mill Creek as well. And Mill Creek and Washington State are probably also on track to hit that super age point in about 2030. You can see the super age is coming for Mill Creek. What does the super age mean for Mill Creek? It means older adults are going to make up a much larger proportion of the community. Older adults and their families are going to be looking for a much broader range of activities and social connection points. Older adults will be working longer and their spending power is going to be growing. And older adults are going to identify less and less with that old label from the 50s, seniors. Older adults are going to be a powerful and social economic driver, and they're not going to be looking for traditional senior centers. They're not going to be looking for senior products, senior housing, or senior facilities. They're going to be looking for cool stuff, for housing options, and for public amenities that are designed with them in mind. And I want to give you a few examples. This on the screen is I'm showing you a picture of a Porsche Macan, and it is a sports car. It's a Porsche, but it also has a lot of age-friendly and safety features. It has a push-button start, it has front and rear view cameras, surround view functions, and driver assist technology. This is not a senior car, but this is a car that's designed with seniors in mind. These are Caddis reader's glasses. Caddis, the company, realized that more people need readers and they don't necessarily want to pick them up from that weird rack in the pharmacy. So they designed some cool lines. They marketed them to a wide age group with a really cheeky campaign. And these are not senior glasses. These are really cool readers designed for a new aging population. This is Battywinkle, Helen Ruth Elam. She's a social media influencer, 85 years old, with 3.5 million followers. Her tagline is "Stealing Your Man" since 1928. She is not a social media influencer for seniors. She's an influential entrepreneur who says just because people are living longer than previous generations, that doesn't mean they're old. And I like this image a lot. I think this captures a lot of what I'm talking about. I'm showing a picture right now that has the Golden Girls on the left and the newest version of Sex and the City on the right. And does anybody know what those two shows have in common? They're both shows about what women do in their 50s. And our idea of what women do in their 50s has really, really changed, and about people doing their 50s. We've been using this picture a lot because this shows that the super age adults are looking for experiences that are adventurous, they're educational, they contribute to social good, they're bold, they're looking for communities that are designed with them in mind. So thinking about spaces, as we're thinking about spaces for older adults in super age, I want to talk a little bit about what we're thinking about at Northshore Senior Center. We are really thinking about what kind of spaces we're going to need in 5 and 10 and 15 years. And currently we have 3 really different campuses. We have the Kenmore Senior Center, which is kind of an old little shack house in a park. It's really cute. We have the storefront Mill Creek Senior Center, which is a storefront property in a senior housing development. And we also have the Bothell campus, which is like the big one, 75,000 square feet with 2 buildings in Bothell. Now, we haven't figured out the perfect solution for the future, but we know it isn't the little house in the park or the little storefront in a senior community. We're doing great things in those places right now. We're doing really cool things in those spaces right now. But the Bothell campus was designed by older adults who very intentionally built civic spaces with the needs of an aging population in mind. In fact, many of our Mill Creek members use both the Mill Creek Senior Center and travel to Bothell for other services. With kitchen spaces, activity rooms, a gym, a stage, fitness center, medical facilities, technology lab, the team at Bothell, our team at Bothell, has more flexibility to adapt to the demands of the super age. And our team at Bothell is also able to provide a whole host of programs that you can see on the screen, while the ones that are highlighted in red are the only ones we can do in Kenmore and Mill Creek. At Northshore, we're developing strategies for the future, and we're looking for partners and opportunities to develop more hub spaces like Bothell. That's kind of our strategic vision. We need more spaces like this in our communities. They need to be able to serve the needs of older adults and the greater community and be cool and innovative at the same time. So going back to our data diagrams for a minute, we're really thinking strategically at Northshore Senior Center about building programs and spaces that work for today's seniors and also for the aging population that's going to be with us for the next 10, 20, and 30 years and beyond. We're hoping that our civic partners are also considering the social and economic benefits of harnessing that power of the super age. As you're considering the DRCC development, your strategic plans, and other projects, we'd love to partner with you wherever our interests intersect, and we'd love to be a partner in that. And if it's okay, I think I'll stop there and see if I have any questions or if Martin has anything else he wants to add.
It's a little bit off the specific topic, but I think it fits with your expertise. How do you think about, or what have you seen around the changes in infrastructure that we might need to start to look at, whether it's sidewalks or how people shop or short haul transit, that type of thing? I got to think that your folks think about that kind of stuff with your community. Can you comment on that at all?
A little, I can comment to that. When we think of infrastructure improvements, we're often thinking of accessibility improvements, walkability. As people age, they often like to traverse less distance, shorter commutes. And we think of older adults who are still going to be working longer, and so we think of those kind of commute spans too. So we think in kind of a village kind of, or a hub kind of model, as we're thinking of how our programs plug into a community and what the community needs to support it. That's not.
No, that actually, that's super helpful, I think. Yeah, as the planning folks, I think one of the speakers they asked, or one of the folks made a comment today about comprehensive plan. It sounds like if we're thinking about those super agers, having them, I'm going to paraphrase what I think you said, closer together, so they don't have to travel as far, with amenities surrounding them, is probably going to be the type of thing that'll work for those folks.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also keep in mind that super agers will be biking more. They'll be adventuring more. We're starting a paddleboard club for seniors. Seniors are as people age, they're not necessarily looking for the senior experience that their parents had. They're looking for a lot more as they go older.
And how many residents do you have in the 3 places in total?
We serve altogether right now. We're serving a little over 4. I think we're on track for a little over 4,000 people this year. We serve between Mill Creek and more.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Harder.
Is this YouTube or sound? They sound? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. This is what you've been waiting for. Will Nelson queued me up pretty good. So I'm here to talk about the resident portal. This is something I think Councilmember Paddock and Duque, remember we talked about this at the last city chat. So Jody and I have been listening to the needs of the community. When we both started, the website's always kind of been difficult to navigate. We've heard comments from the community. So we were just trying to listen to the needs and see what people wanted. So yeah, we just always heard this feedback. Finding resources is tough, especially as a resident, because the website it didn't always seem like it was built for a resident. It was just built for somebody looking to find information about Mill Creek. So we were finding that some of these resources were 2 to 5 clicks inside the website. So if you want to find out information on the DRCC, you're 5 clicks in. That's tough to find, right? And there's so many of these other initiatives and projects that we're working on that we want people to be able to find as a resident, and they're just really hidden inside the website. So I think it was back in January, Jody and I started thinking about how can we make it easier for a resident. And we didn't want to rebuild anything since we're going to be doing a new website hopefully before the end of the year. So we had to come up with something temporary, and we just thought, we'll just make a fancy landing page, just something, a place a resident can go to and find all these resources all in one spot. So it's going to be built for residents, businesses, and visitors, of course, just to get easy access to our resources. So this is kind of a nice little word collage of everything that we figured that people wanted to know about. So this kind of went into, I guess you could call it phase 1. Basically anybody, it's not going to be live in case everybody here though can go to it, but it is live that way. It's just millcreeklaw.gov/resident. You go there. I'm going to peruse this real quick. You guys can see the browser, right? Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna go down to here. So you can see on the left side here, here's where we started at with everything that we thought people wanted to know about, right? And then everything on the right side is just highlighting some of those issues, but everything's basically on the left. So we're going to be highlighting the 40th anniversary, a link just to city highlights. So we know that's included in the rec guide, but what we did is we pulled it out and it's just focused on that city news. How to report a concern, that's another difficult spot for people. It's another process we're going to try and make a lot easier when we go on website version whatever is next. A link to community events, how to contact you guys, more information on the DRC properties, middle housing study, sub area, our guidelines, permits, taxes, recreation programs, surveys, how to get a hold of our legislators, the state of the city video and volunteer program. So it's a long list right now. I'm sure it's going to change, get added to, things removed. But again, this is just one spot. They can go here and they can, on the second click, find out information on the DRCC. In the middle, you can see here, this is kind of what we're trying to highlight, what we want to push. A lot of it's about the middle housing study, taking the survey, and then take other polls and other, people are always asking about events and stuff. So we're going to see how this works for now, try and get some feedback from some folks. I've asked some friends already some feedback. We'd love your feedback if you spend some time on it. But this is where phase 1 is going to start at. All right, back to PowerPoint. Okay, so how's everybody going to find out about this? Like we did for the fire annexation, we're going to leverage that service to get these, I didn't bring it with me, mailers sent out. You can see it here though. This is a 6x8.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than 5x7.
Yeah, a little bit bigger than 5x7. Your standard kind of postcard thing that'll come in the mail, double-sided. And we got a grant from the state for the middle housing study. So that's going to help pay for a lot of this. But we're going to address the middle housing study on this, as you can see. And we're also going to link to the resident portal. On the right side, you can see there's going to be a magnet. And they're going to take off that magnet, put it on their fridge, so at any time they can go to the resident portal or scan the QR code. But it's going to go to about 91 residents sometime in mid-May. And let's see. Yeah, see, look, going to get something out of the refrigerator. There's your, how do I find out about services? And of course, we'll leverage social media, get everything included in the local newsletters from the HOAs, Chamber, Rotary, Kiwanis, use some advertising dollars to go in the Beacon, our recreation guide, and Greek magazine. Really going to be doing a big push. You'll be seeing more of that, just so that everybody knows they can just go one spot and find everything that they want to find out about. What did I leave out, Jody?
I think that just after Nathan said we could put that spot on there for
Senior programs.
senior services, but we'll maybe rename it. So
Yeah.
I saw the HOA.
I don't know how well this picks up, but let's
I saw on there that there was some HOA communication. What does that look like?
oh, in our advertising, right? So we're going to try and
Newsletter?
use like the MCCA newsletters of some of the local homeowners associations. We have a list of all of those here in Mill Creek outside of the MCA, not just MCCA, right? We want to reach everybody and try and, like I said, use traditional media, use social media and print. Do I get a call in? Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I had two questions for you. One was on the homes. You had 9,100 homes, correct? How did you select the homes? What was the criteria?
It's the same mailer with the service that we use for fire annexation. So they're the one that put the listserv together that goes to all the homes in Mill Creek and businesses, right?
What was the criteria for that?
So they used the version, so we went through ICRF and they took the normal mailing route, I guess you'd say different mailing routes, And then they had to go in and individual out where the route went out beyond the creek. So it was part of this list, and then also it's going the line. But then also business.
Jody, can you use the mic, please?
We're trying. I can't reach that far.
This combination of
We're using an existing list that we use with the fire annexation, which pretty much accomplished plus added the businesses.
Roughly 50% of our home, correct?
No, it's all of them.
There's a 2 something people per house, so 9,100 properties. That's 2.2 people due to the.
Here you go. We're not leaving anybody out.
Right, so it's roughly 100% of our homes and businesses.
I got it. I'm certified.
So it's about 9,100 properties they're mailing to. Properties include business properties and all of the residential properties, because each residential property has an average of 2.2 people. So 9,100 times 2.2 gets you about the 21,000 people. So we're hitting everybody.
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 This is every
Plus.
Every
residence,
home. Okay.
every single family residence and every apartment.
That's
It's
all.
all the people. Yeah.
That's 100% great. My second question, on the resident portal, is the resident portal
Directory. Oh,
a directory?
department directory.
Yes.
It's located at the bottom, as it is with every page. But as far as getting a hold of staff and stuff, is that what you're talking about?
This directory is great, and I commend you. When you first came out with
I'll take that.
I looked at that. Yes, the only area of opportunity that I saw was on the directory. I made a number of phone calls and I got directed to other people's phone numbers. Like, for example, the finance director went to an employee that is no longer with us. I called Adrian's phone number and I was directed to somebody else, to another person's phone number. And those are just two examples. So I think what we need to do is cleanse it and go through and call every phone number that's in there and make sure that it's correct and going to the correct person. Those are only two examples. That might be the only two in the whole thing. But I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. And make sure that the correct phone number goes.
Okay. That's something you think, and I agree that a resident wants to be able to do. And we see that often too. They just
Right.
want to know who to talk to about permits, and sometimes that's
Call
buried.
that number and get that person,
Yeah. Got it.
Also, I have a comment. The Ermine number that you tried to call, one number was cut. So I did that, we did that.
Okay.
Other questions?
So, yeah, good stuff.
Cool. But again, if you guys can look at it, I appreciate your residents. Everybody here's residents. Appreciate your feedback. Take this back to you, Brad.
Okay, the item of new business tonight is it's got a life of its own. Okay. The item of new business tonight is the Puget Sound Regional Council General Assembly. It is 11 to 1 on May 30th down in the Embassy Suites Hotel by King Street Station. There's 3 items listed in the agenda. I think 2 of them we need action on. One of them we'll have to wait for a couple of weeks because we don't yet know what the agenda is. It'll be published, I think, 10 days before the General Assembly. But the main items at the General Assembly are the adoption of the work program and budget for the coming year and the election of new officers. So first need to know who's going to be able to attend. I'm planning to go. I haven't registered yet, but I should be able to go. Is anyone else interested, wanting to go? Tuesday, May 30th. It's the 5th week of the 5th Tuesday of May, so we do not have a meeting that night. Where I need clarification from Mike or Martin is, it says we have to, in the agenda summary, we have to elect a voting representative, but then in the materials I've received from the PSRC, it says every elected official is a voting member of the General Assembly.
The city is a member. Not a person.
But I believe you can appoint someone to represent the city, whether it's a mayor pro tem as an acting, as you're an alternate currently on 2 boards, but you could still appoint someone to represent the entire council, if I'm not mistaken.
So traditionally, I think what they're saying, anybody can go, you can get lunch that way, probably if it's a lunch meeting, that's what's in the past. But when it comes time, they say do roll call vote, they say Mill Creek, somebody needs to say aye or nay. They don't want 10 different council members saying that from the city of Seattle, for instance. That's why they want 1 elected member. And when you get there, you have to log in. We have to give them that name ahead of time, and you have to log in and say, I'm here. So I can be looking for somebody to say the vote for Mill Creek. That's at least historically.
Mayor, city attorney has something to add.
So, yeah, thank you, Mayor. So reviewing the PSRC bylaws, which is always a dangerous thing to do. But it provides that voting will be on the basis of a weighted vote of the members, with the total votes of all cities based on their respective share of total incorporated population of the city. Representatives present shall cast the jurisdiction's vote with total weighted vote and may split their vote as they choose. So it's really up to you all to decide how you want to handle Mill Creek's votes. And you can have one person cast all of the votes for Mill Creek, or you can allocate it.
Well, let's start by who else is planning to go?
Mayor,
Is there a question or?
I can go.
Okay.
I'm available.
Okay, yeah, and anyone's free to sign up. There's no limit on how many of us can attend.
Carpool. Shotgun.
Okay, is that 3 of us?
I may be able to.
Adrian, do you know the registration deadline?
I don't, but I'll look into that.
Wasn't yesterday.
The way things are going.
Second. Deadline, where's it? Okay, well, I want to say it's might still be a couple weeks off. I can't find it. So Adrian, can you look into that and figure out if you can register the 3 of us? And while we let Adrian know before the end of the week, if you're, besides Melissa, John and I, who's going to attend, and we'll get it registered.
Sounds good.
So assuming it's the 3 of us, how do we want to do the votes?
Talk about in the current meeting.
I think we have to have a formal action.
No, we have to have a.
Formal action.
Oh, from the council?
Yeah,
Here?
formal
Okay.
action appointing the designated person. They need something official to put in the record.
Oh, I'm happy, yeah.
I'm happy for it to be me too, but
I know,
there needs to be a
Brian.
motion to that effect.
I make a motion to have the mayor make the vote for us.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, or I should say, is there any discussion?
Right.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 6-0. So, well, we should have the agenda before the meeting, our meeting on the 23rd, so we can discuss the substance of what's going to be before the General Assembly, so you can provide some direction on how you'd like it. Okay. Martin and Grants.
Thanks, Mayor. Back on March 28th, we had a study session to address not only a few things. One is the change in the AMB board's time of their week of their meeting, the 4th week, but we also the second part of that study session was to address some of the provisions within the boards and commissions. And Grant here is, our city attorney is here to cover some of those discussions that we had. We didn't have full consensus on everything. We still brought through an ordinance with those changes, and you should have that in your packet, so you have an idea of kind of what revisions that we did make to those provisions. So I'll hand it off to the city attorney to speak about those changes and the ordinance. Thank you. Grant, would you like me to bring up the PowerPoint, or do you have?
I've got. You should have it up on your computers. Is it showing?
We can see it.
Yep. Thank goodness.
Oh, the last one. Sorry. There it is.
There we go. So just to follow up with what the city manager was saying, when we had our study session in late March, we focused on the governance structure for four of the most active boards and commissions: the Planning Commission, the Design Review Board, Park and Recreation Board, and the Art and Beautification Board. And following at the end of our study session, council gave us some direction, and what we're coming back tonight is with an ordinance that implements the direction should you choose to vote for it. Just the key points that we addressed from your direction was there was not a provision in any of our chapters of the code dealing with boards and commissions that authorized you to reappoint board members, and it seemed to make sense to do that, and there was consensus to do that, and the proposed ordinance does that. Also, council wanted to express a desire for a more robust recruitment effort for board and commission members. And from a code perspective, one of the things we did was make sure that we could, staff could use all of the councils or all of the city's electronic tools, including your social media feeds, which were not specifically authorized. All it said was we could use the website and advertise in the newspaper, and those are fine, but there are new tools available, and so now we put that into the ordinance. Council also wanted to address expanding the list of events, life events that would be excused absences for members of boards and commissions, and we've done that as well. We also noticed that one of the boards and commissions was required to provide you a chance to review. Yes. Is there somebody speaking?
No.
Okay. To review their operating rules of procedures. And we also found that there's a couple of boards and commissions that don't have any right now. So we're worked on a template of rules for the operation of boards and commissions, and we will get those out to them for review and for their chance to get it prepared, review it, and then submit it for your approval. And a lot of this is just making sure that there's processes for public hearings for those commissions and boards that have public hearings, that there are, their general rules of operating, what their agenda is and how they receive public comment, just like you do at your council meeting. So to have that formalized and clear is an improvement in governance. Also, there was some discussion about wanting to align the dates when terms end, and we found that it would be helpful to have 2 times of the year when terms ended, so that there could be an effective recruitment effort, and also making sure that there's sufficient time for the council to do the interviews of potential applicants. So we wanted to make one change that allows the Planning Commission terms to end on May 31st, which would align that also with the Design Review Board terms ending. And then the A&B Board and the Parks Board would also end at the same time. And I believe they ended on October 31st. So you'd have a spring and a fall period of time when you'd be doing recruitment and interviews. Finally, and I believe the city manager mentioned this, we will put into the ordinance changing the regular meeting date for the Art and Beautification Board to the 4th Wednesday of the month. So those are the changes. I believe you had in the packet a strike version so you could see what the current language is and what we're adding. And with that, what we will need, if there is interest, is a motion to adopt the ordinance making the revisions. Happy to answer any questions.
Can we pull up the strike version? I don't have a copy in front of me. Are you able to pull it up on the screen?
Adrian, can you maybe, I don't have that up handy right now myself.
I can, 1 second.
All right, let me stop sharing my screen.
While he's trying to pull that up, I'll ask the question because I can't tell if this is language that's proposed to be changed or is existing. In section 2, general provisions,
Yes.
item B, it talks about absences and excused absences, but it doesn't say who determines if an absence is excused.
We will add into their rules of procedure a provision that authorizes the board or commission to vote on the absence.
Okay. So what?
It's on the strike.
Okay. And my other question is in section 4 under the design review board. Can you help me understand? Again, I can't tell if this has changed or not. Now the sentence that I can't make sense of is the 4th sentence. Said rule shall provide that the meetings of the design review board shall be open to the public, provided no special notice of the meeting need be given, and that such meetings be public hearings. What?
That is the language that exists today.
I figured was going to be the case.
And having not, we didn't, there was no discussion about making changes to that at this time, only because we didn't, the design review board has some specific roles and responsibilities, and they haven't been that active. But I think that is one we may come back to you with some change at another time. Just to clear it up, it is a mouthful, but I think what it means is that at its regular meetings, it can hold hearings, including public hearings, and that's typically and hearings on specific project-specific matters, because that's what really they're doing is project-specific matters.
Anyone else have any objection if we might? Councilmember Cavalieri, I know, might have some interest in this, and I don't know about others. I'd rather do this once than have to adopt it and then clean it up again. Should we take a step back and hold off on this for a week? Councilmember Duque? Just speak loudly.
I can speak very loudly. It's not the purpose. I am happy to hold off on this. The question I had that was I didn't think of the strike-through version if there was a number of people on the board. Oh yeah, because we did say that we wanted. Well, I didn't see in the strike-through version.
I didn't quite hear Councilmember Duquesne's question. I apologize.
My question was if we had discussed at the last meeting, if we could have all of the commissions and boards have the same number, and I don't see that on the strike-through version.
That's correct. At least in my notes, I didn't hear a consensus on that. If I missed that, we can certainly change it. And the issue related to whether we had, we were having difficulty with the recruitment at this time. So the question was whether we wanted to keep the membership at the same levels now or same number of seats now, and then in the future, perhaps add seats to commissions.
Which ones in particular were you thinking of?
I just wanted them to be all.
DRB has 5.
Is either the Planning Commission or DRB dictated by state law?
I don't believe the number of members is. Right now, we have 7 members on the Planning Commission, which is pretty typical of other jurisdictions, that's for sure. I think most of them are 7. I believe the design review is 5. I believe the other ones, and I can pull it up in a minute, but I believe the other ones are 7.
Are they only 5?
The-
7?
So they are the same now?
All but design review. And of course, and with design review, that's the one where we have a requirement that the membership be professionals with design experience, with design backgrounds.
That's a little more a challenge if you increase the size of the design review board. You might not find the qualified candidates willing and able to serve. Okay, go ahead, Grant.
Oh, I was going to say, Mayor, we could also change it to say you can live or work in Mill Creek. Maybe that can open up the pool as well.
It says that now. You don't have, that's the one board that does not require residency.
The Planning Commission doesn't.
Yes, it does.
It does?
Yeah.
A current longtime member that's not been a resident of Mill Creek. We just reappointed him. Yes, I believe, I mean, you don't think it does? I don't think it does either. Yeah. So that's something we're gonna have to, I think we might need to take a little more than a week because we just reappointed someone last week who I believe does not live in the city of Mill Creek. In fact, I know he doesn't. I'm sorry?
We have 2.
So Grant, if we want to consider some kind of residency limitation, we might have to have some kind of phase out for existing members.
For existing members.
Yeah. So, okay, so do we have the issues that we need to look at a little farther to bring this back in at the next meeting or two?
We can certainly bring back, yeah, I'm happy to do that. These are fairly discrete issues, so we can certainly polish this one up and bring it back to you next week. With respect to I'm just trying to pull up I'll get I wanted to pull up and see specifically whether we can answer the question about residency of planning commission members right now.
If my suggestion on the planning commission would be, I'm not opposed to allowing non-residents, but I'd want to put a limit on how many non-residents could be on the commission. Maybe you limit it to 2, so you have to have 5 of the 7 as residents of Mill Creek. I'm sorry? Right.
I'm happy to
I'm happy you're saying it twice.
to not move forward with the consensus of having all 5 or having all of them at 7. I respect that design review board because of the requirements would make it difficult. But for planning commission, I personally think they should be Mill Creek residents, but I'm happy if it's within the UGA.
Yeah, I mean, also feel like they should be in the frequency.
Well, Grant, maybe you could put together a couple options for us to consider on that.
Certainly can do that. And it appears right now that the planning commission doesn't, the code does not require the planning commission members to live in the city, which I gotta say, I'm surprised at.
Okay, do you have enough direction for what to bring back?
I do. Thank you very much. And we will bring something back to you next week.
Councilmember Steckler has a question or comment.
Just a couple of questions from the last time we had, had this meeting, and I may not have recalled it correctly, but I seem to remember a couple of questions that we had. One was, I thought we did not want to have the A and B and Parks and Rec renew at the same time, because although it was easier for a recruitment standpoint, we were having trouble getting enough candidates. And we thought it would be better not to be out recruiting at the same time because we're not able to fill the vacancies that we have. It's just something I recall us talking about. And at the same time, I do recall that neither one of these, I think they're both supposed to be, and I don't know if we've looked into this. I thought they were both supposed to be at 9 positions, and neither one are at 9 positions as of right now,
Supposed to be by what?
at 9, and they're
Supposed to be by what? Supposed to be at
9 members?
9 members, yes.
No,
And we were looking into that. So maybe we looked into it and found out they're not supposed to be at 9. That
no,
was-
there's no 9 members. They were at 7. I do believe that, there were 2 conversations going during that study session, Councilmember Steckler, and one was whether or not to expand to have all commissions to be 7-member, and then also the question about what was there over, about the overlapping dates for recruitment and whether that would hurt. And I thought the other part of that was going to be I thought the direction from that was that we were going to try a more robust recruitment effort as a way of mitigating that concern. And that is certainly planned. And I believe the city clerk has got some additional ideas about how to make that more robust.
That's good. I know we were at 7. I just remember somebody saying at the last meeting that they thought it was written to be at 9 and they were going to look into that to make sure that it wasn't written to be 9.
It is not written to be 9.
Okay, great. So we looked into that. And I do remember that the other question about recruitment at the same time. So just wanted to bring that up in the last meeting.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the other reason for not staggering them is if we have them all on the same date, we're gonna have half a day of interviews.
That was the other thing we brought up.
Right. That did come up.
Mayor, if I can add, just to Councilmember Steckler's question about having it all on at the same date of October 31st, we do have it staggered, so only like a couple on each, like for the A and B board, only 2 expire in 2024. I think 2 expire in 2025. So it's not like that many are expiring on each board or commission. So it'd just be like 2 from the A and B board and probably 2 from the park board. It wouldn't be too many at once. And with the robust recruitment, we're hoping to get a big pool to fill those.
Absent vacancies that come up. Okay, other questions, comments for Grant?
Just a question, if I could, to get some feedback from council about an option with respect to the planning commission, if in fact we have a commissioner who's a non-resident. If we were to amend that section to say commencing in 2024, all future appointed planning commission members shall be residents of Mill Creek, would that grasp what council's intent is there?
I guess my question is, what if we have a vacancy up the rest of this year? How would that be handled? Could we do it like mid-year this year instead of waiting until 2024?
Well, I'm not sure you have any more expiring terms this year.
Yeah, we do. We
We
have
have
one,
one
we have
more.
one thing we're gonna have to fill in the next month.
In the next month.
I think we have 3 options. Either we limit it to residents, but then have some proviso that existing members who are not residents may continue their term and be reappointed. I wouldn't want to boot someone who wants to continue serving on, but then we phase them out. So when they decide that they're done, that they'd be replaced by a resident. Or else, I think that would be the way if we wanted to limit it to residents, we just phase them out. I'm not sure I want to do that, but that's just my.
There a reason we want them to be resident? I think there's probably obviously, but I just be interested in hearing. If the design and review board is limited to resident.
The design and review board is a little unique because we have specific design criteria that they are charged with applying. And so that the commission is designed for people to have the expertise to help apply those provisions. The planning commission is a little more amorphous in terms of the opinions of how people think we should be dealing with the growth issues in planning.
I think Grant has a fairly unique set of skills and perspectives, right? A little bit different than the other 2 arts. It may not be as specific, but time board, but understanding planning requirements.
Grant, why don't you bring it? I mean, I think we have three options. Either we limit it to residents and phase them out. Or we leave it at 7 and say X need to be residents and Y can be non-residents, but don't have to be. So you could have 7 residents, or you could have 5 + 2 or 6 + 1. 2 ways to deal with it. Other ways we want to consider, we don't have to decide. We can have Grant put together some language and look at it and debate it next week.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Council.
And thank you. Okay, strategic plan discussion. Martin.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, audience. So what I'm doing here is the deputy city manager and I put together a PowerPoint that in preparation for bringing on a consultant for strategic planning in nailing down a scope by July 1st. So we wanted to bring together just some ideas about a little preliminary, but we wanted to kind of give council an idea of the process. And I did add a slide today that kind of gives council some things to think about also as well between now and then when we get that consultant hired in terms of strategic consulting. So, yes. Thank you. So we just give an overview of what strategic planning is and kind of what the vision and mission are and how that's distinct from actually our vision and mission and core values. An overview of actually what the process entails. Why do we need a plan? And then some things to think about and take forward and consider before we actually get a consultant on board. And so I'll start with what planning is. So the key things here is really as an organization, just for us, kind of what are our intentions moving forward, and really the future and how will we get there? What do we see? What does council envision the city being at a 10-year mark, or 5 or 10 or 15 or 20-year mark? So it's further than just a few years into the future. What's our strategic plan? What's our roadmap to get to that big picture over the long term? So again, the distinction here, this is more operational. This is operationally focused. I want to make that distinction. So some people might get confused on the vision and mission of our internal operations, but we're talking more bigger picture. So according to MRSC, the vision statement is really developing consensus among the community and all of us on where we see the future of our community. Basically, what our community members think of in terms of what value that they're looking for in terms of community. Forward thinking, forward looking. And one key thing I underline here is what's really important is that, and I keep discussing, is to be helpful for their operational team, the leadership team also, to make key decisions based on knowing kind of where we're going to be. A lot of things we discuss internally about what might work or what might not work across the city in terms of, for example, infrastructure assets, things we can bring in, but to make those rational and disciplined tactical decisions, not on the community issues only, but from an operational standpoint as well. So the vision is critical. Mission, again, it's connected to the vision. How are we going to achieve it? and it has to be short, concise. So it's very straight to the point, kind of where we want to be. Probably could be a little longer because it is overarching, but it is important to establish that mission as well. A lot of these things, again, will be covered by the consultant, but it's good to kind of think about these moving forward. I'll briefly go over the actual process. Now, there's no one single approach. So this is just a framework again. That'll give you an idea of kind of what we're thinking internally in terms of how we want to approach this. But again, the consultant will probably give us more direction and may alter this process a little bit. So defining the vision is pretty obvious. So assessing where we are, what assets again do we have in the city? North Creek Trail, the library, and all the other, infrastructure assets that we have, or what do our neighbors have as well, and also Snohomish County. So those are important things to consider as we move forward. Ranking priorities. When you define your vision and you assess, then you start ranking those priorities. You kind of start identifying what things are important to the city and how do we develop those objectives to start making decisions tactically and assigning responsibilities to the staff to start moving forward on whatever it may be in terms of developing infrastructure. Why does Mill Creek need a plan? Because we need a map, a pathway, to get forward so we know kind of where we're at, where we're going. Again, I keep mentioning the having some alignment between what our ultimate vision is and what staff needs to be doing on the tactical side, while considering the impact it's going to have our existing workload as well. Pretty straightforward. Quickly, next steps. We have some ideas on consultants. We have some consultants that were forwarded to us. We have some options we can look at, or we'll maybe go out in RFP and then look for someone who can actually help us work through this process. So we'll have something hopefully nailed down in the next month. So that because if we do have to go RFP, it's going to take probably a month to advertise. The next slide I'll have some key questions and topics for consideration that all of you probably should consider before we actually nail down that consultant. So, and then we'll have a series of work sessions once we do get a consultant. They'll probably focus on probably 5 to 25 years, but we'll have more discussion when that consultant comes in. He'll be able to better guide us. So some of the key question and topics to consider are growing the city. Not implying anything here, but do we want to grow or not? If we don't, that's fine. If we do, then what? We have to be really mindful of kind of what the future lies ahead, kind of where we want to be. We invest in existing communities, kind of investing in existing infrastructure, and not change much, but build internally. Or do we look further down the road and actually grow the city in terms of land? So these are big discussions that we have to make in terms of where we want to be. Revenue streams. With expansion comes the need to pay for these and also funding opportunities. Are there new and missed opportunities that we may have or we haven't seen? So it's really important to really address the need to fund all these projects that are going to be moving forward. The competitive landscape. Snohomish County and the bordering cities, we have to understand kind of what these cities are doing as well and where they're moving. I think it's important to maybe have an asset mapping of their project as well, or what they're planning moving forward, because the next one, timing and game theory, kind of gives you an idea how important it is from a timing perspective. I don't know if you're familiar with game theory. It's kind of complicated mathematical theory or process by which, decisions are made between competitors. Now, the idea here is in its simplest form is we can be a first mover, go in a certain direction with infrastructure development or whatever it may be, or we can play defense and see what decisions we need to make down the road, which may be limited or impacted. So we just have to react. So these are things we need to think about as we move forward and be very cognizant of what our neighbors are doing as well. Opportunity cost of investments. What benefits are we missing out because we're making decisions? The opportunity cost of everything we do. We make decisions internally from an operational standpoint. So we need to move that from a strategic standpoint as well and start thinking about what we may do and the impact of that, what we're losing out if we make those decisions. There's a funding and there's an asset component to that. Comprehensive plan alignment. Snohomish County recently increased their GMA goals to 14. I think it was about 10 or 12, but there is an economic development component to that. There's a lot of things you need to think about and align with this proposed strategic plan. So that has to be in consideration as well. Urban development, public facilities, housing, open spaces. So these are all things that we need to think about as we think about this overall big picture. Industry clusters, just some ideas about kind of what's out there. Clean technology, being green, information and communication technology, agricultural and food manufacturing. It's not necessarily manufacturing, but it's processing. The food and farming center coming into McCollum Park will be a processing center. What impact will that have on our community? Something we can't control, but we have to consider. Negative impacts to growth. When we hire a waste management company or somebody to take up the garbage, we consider the sustainability of the environment when they, get rid of the trash. So, sorry. I'll go back to that slide, but and common strategies. Some of the common strategies out there are basically infrastructure, business development, workforce, but we need to think outside the box, other things that might be out there that we need to focus on. Partnerships, another key component. There are a lot of players in the game, possibly utilities, trade associations, tribes, workforce development partners, the state, local cities, and so forth. And there's an operational impact to growth. With growth comes increased policing, public works, permitting, and changes to our code as well that need to be aligned. So those are things to think about. And finally, any concerns that you may have as a council that for our vision for the future. I believe now is really things are seeming to converge. And I don't know if that's a coincidence, but there's a lot of things that are coming to fruition or coming to the surface, including funding opportunities, grants for a lot of different things. A lot of discussions I'm having with our partners, including Snow Isle Libraries. We'll have a presentation from them about their future, just like Northshore Senior Center. So a lot of agencies are starting to think about how they can either co-locate, work with other agencies to build what the communities actually need, not what they individually are wanting to, their individual goals. They're actually wanting to work with other agencies. So a lot of things are starting to converge now. Our legislators, the strength of them, the ability for them to help us out. And so I believe the 1.5 million that we got was just a tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. So we're very fortunate to have this convergence at this time. So, and with that, I'll take any questions.
You referred to the strategic plan as a 5-year strategic plan, and I think that was a mistake because I think at least my intent with the strategic plan is it's got a much longer vision than 5 years, and I think I sense that we got confused between a strategic plan to implement our goals as opposed to a strategic plan that looks beyond the 5 years and the goals we had set. So that's just my 2 cents. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion. Thoughts?
Microphone.
I don't, oh, I guess I do have it. I think it should pick you up there.
Okay, exceptional job. It's fantastic.
Just a couple of thoughts. I think you're all the way there. The goals are going to come from, this meeting with the consultant. And so no question on the goals. The goals will come out, and as the goals are derived, they're going to be either a 1 year, a 3 year, a 5 year, 10 year, depending upon how intricate they are. Any suggestions I would add to the key questions and topics? I think my questions are somewhat tied in with some of the comments that you have, and I might have just worded them a little bit differently. But here's what I came up with. One of the questions I would have for them is there a way we can find out what does right look like whenever you're looking at a growth plan? If you can see what a city looks like when they've done the right kind of growth and the right plan, because growth can be horrible, they can be fantastic. It's just the right amount of growth, the right controlled amount of growth over a certain amount of period. If we could see what that looks like, and a company's growth is measured, it's beautiful when it's done right, and it could destroy a company or a city when it's done wrong. What does right look like? If we can get control of that or get a visual for that, that would be very valuable. One thing on this key questions or topics to consider with a consultant, they all are very good at coming up with all kinds of cerebral visions. Can they help to create a tactical plan of execution? That tactical plan of what do we need to do by when in order to achieve the types of goals that we're talking about? When they can help you to create that tactical plan of execution, then that's a great partner. That's a great consultant. And if there's any way that we can find, and this is where you kind of had it in here, you've said this in many different ways, but I think I had it in more simplistic terms. How do cities fail? Where is failure? What are the pain points? What are the things that we need to write up on a wall and make sure we do not do? Because if we do these, we will fail. So what does right look like? And the opposite, that is, how do cities fail? What do we want to do right? And what do we want to make sure we avoid? But I think that the other one, that tactical plan of execution, if those are, you were saying key questions or topics for these consultants, those would be my 3 suggestions.
I guess one thing we've got to decide tonight too is there was some discussion as whether it's a council driven, a staff driven plan or a consultant driven plan. I never envisioned a staff taking the lead on this. I envisioned that we would be investing the money to hire a consultant to guide us through this process with consultation with the council and support from the staff. And so are we on board that we're gonna at some point allocate the money to hire a consultant to guide us through this process?
Yes.
Okay.
What is our goal from the discussion tonight? I think I'm sorry. What are you wanting to get from us tonight?
Really, it's just a process. I hired a consultant.
Martin, we can't hear you.
Yeah, so that really it's just to give council an idea of what the leadership team's concerns are and kind of what we would like to do moving forward. One is hire a consultant to help us move through the strategic plan. You're right, the leadership team, we don't have the capacity to do this, or probably even the expertise to put something together. While considering a lot of things that are on this slide and more, it's just a start, a glimpse of kind of what we need to think about moving forward. And it's nothing new, but it's really important to at least get the key concepts down. Some of these are unforeseen definitions. The opportunity costs. We don't always think about these kind of things moving forward when we make decisions. So it's nailing down a consultant, getting your approval to move forward with the consultant. It's considering these, and then that's pretty much it. And then once we do that, we'll start having a number of sessions, study sessions, to move in that direction, to nail down that scope. I'm thinking, so in the packets attached are samples of plans that other cities have completed. What the deputy city manager and I are thinking of something that represents something similar to the city of Richland. It's a one-page summary with key core focus points that help guide us. And then at the following 5 or 6 pages would emphasize those key areas. I mean, you can go full blown out, 10 to 20 pages, but I don't think that's necessary. I think what's important is that we have a good short synopsis of kind of where we want to, what we're looking for down the road. But if you choose to go longer, a more hefty plan, that's fine too. But
I think we've got consensus that we want to use a consultant. I think we're in agreement this strategic plan has more than a 5-year horizon on it. We're not just looking for a strategic plan for the next 5 years. It is longer than that, and items within the strategic plan may have shorter. But if we have consensus on that and kind of what the city managers outlined, maybe we revise the priority for the year. The next step would be to come back with a work plan. We're hiring a consultant and putting together a timeline for when we might have a strategic plan put together. Thoughts, John? Anyone?
Well, we had some questions regarding like whether or not we thought we should go out for community involvement. And so is that part of our discussion ahead of time on what we think the strategic plan is, or is that part of our discussion with the?
It's part of the consultant process.
Because
Like,
that was something that we were having disagreement on.
and to me, it would be a similar process to what we agreed to do with the master plan, where we hire a consultant to come up with a whole process for developing the strategic plan and what the public input during that process is going to be.
Okay.
John's cogitating.
I think good. No, I was giving John up. Oh, you, I'm sorry. No, I just like to see us, and we're moving down the road. Let's move ahead with the consultant. Let's see what they come back with. The recommendation is a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan. Let's we're moving ahead of the process of being very specific and strategic, thoughtful about where we are today and where we want to go to, and how long it's going to take us to get there, and what we need to do in order to get there. That's the strategic approach, future of our city. And I'm happy to say I'm thinking in that direction. That's great. That's great. And 3 years, 5 years, I don't know the future. We got to look at the goals. We got to look at what do we want to do? What do we want to get to? Once you know what you want to get to, you have to say, okay, realistic. So I think this is a great step. The approach that you're taking, I just like us to allow the city to go to the next step and hire the consultant. I'd like to see us move to the next step. And then we can answer the question, how long is the plan going to be?
And I think the examples that were in the packet were all pulled from the MRSC website, and those were just some of them. There's a bunch more, and I haven't gone through them in detail, but I'd encourage us to do a little homework over the next 4 to 6 weeks and review some of those, because they all are a little bit different. They all have different approaches and different ways. So I think it'd be helpful for all of us to educate ourselves and take a look at those over the coming weeks if you have free time.
For the plan, okay. The video.
So this the actually process we took from another source, but you'll find that on MRSC probably as well. But actually what came from MRSC is actually the what is the vision and mission, but everything's on there, so you'll find everything on there anyway.
No.
Yeah.
I'm limiting myself tonight. too.
Should do this more often. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Tonight, we're going to talk, a study session, we're going to talk about municipal solid waste contract, give you a lot of background. It's, see, Councilmember Duque is already really rocking on this. That's great. Not everybody rocks like that, but this is important. So I'm going to run through some of the basics of why we do this, and then talk about our current contract, and then talk about what things are important to you in our next contract. So we're trying to lead up to a process by which we will go out and initiate our next contract. So state requirements, why do we do this? RCW 70A-205 is about solid waste management, and it's really focused on reducing human health impacts of trash, garbage, bad things, and also protecting the environment, preventing pollution and conserving resources. That's what fundamentals we're trying to do. State law requires source separation, so you have to look at where things are coming from, trash, recyclables, organics. We'll talk more about that. And it requires the counties to create what's called a comprehensive solid waste management plan, an SWMP, not a surface water management plan. This one, SW means solid waste in this case. The county therefore puts together that plan, and that the elements that are required in that plan are that they have to consider and plan, county has to consider and plan for trash, recyclables, and organics. You have to collect them as source separated materials. You have to collect those three things separately, state law. And the first thing you do is you handle and prepare recyclables, you handle and prepare the organics, and then you handle and prepare what's left over is the non-recyclable waste, which we think of as trash. And you're also required to consider, but don't have to do things like construction waste, food waste, typical recyclables, source separation strategies, reduction strategies. The county's plan has to talk about those kinds of things. A little bit of basics, where does this stuff go? So I put down both where it goes and kind of what you think about. So trash mostly is a cost. It's a cost to transport that somewhere and bury it. We don't incinerate garbage around here. That was the case many years ago. We don't do that anymore for air pollution purposes, so it gets buried. So when it leaves here, it goes by truck to a transfer station. Ours typically goes up to Airport Road. It's compacted, put in a truck again, and taken to intermodal yard where it goes from a truck to a train, and it gets transported by rail to a landfill, Roosevelt landfill in Clickitat County. That's a large landfill. There'd be lots of capacity there for quite a while. Recyclables have some economic value, so they're trying to sort those out and get some value out of that. In our case, it goes from the truck to what's called a MRF, a material recovery facility, the one that Waste Management uses. That our current provider is down in Woodinville, but these are different places for different providers. They take out the valuable components, they sort them out, they bale them up, and then they truck those to various recycling or manufacturing firms for further processing. Any residuals that come out of that are trash, so those go back to transportation and to the landfill, same process as regular trash. Organics, there is again economic value to it, and we're trying to fundamentally keep a lot of that stuff out of the waste stream, the trash stream, because putting organics into a landfill is not very efficient. So those are trucked to our organics processing facility. Processing takes 8 weeks or more, big piles of stuff covered with membranes or left open, stirred, just like you'd make compost at home. You can stir it, and if it gets warm enough and gets stirred enough, it turns into very rich soil that's used as an amendment for all kinds of good stuff. That gets trucked back to customers. So you can think about lots of trucking, lots of moving of this stuff from when it goes from dirt curb until it's finally resolved somewhere, final resolution somewhere. Cities requirements. We can either do our own, or most cities, and in fact, in Snohomish County, all the cities are part of the county's solid waste management plan. We are part of an ILA. We did some work last year on that ILA to re-up through 2023. The solid waste management group at Snohomish County leads this effort. Cities get together on it. We'll be asked to renew that ILA after 2023. You may remember last year in September, we adopted the 2021 County Comprehensive Solid Waste Management Plan Update Draft. That is in draft status until it gets accepted by the Department of Ecology. So ecology fundamentally is the primary agency at the state that says, is your plan up to snuff for the entire county? So that 2021 plan, I think it probably got delayed during COVID. I don't know exactly the dates, but we are not delinquent in a bad way, but we are working with the county to get that done. The last few elements are in process right now. Our code, turns out the last time I put there as it stands, our code was last updated in 1992, and it so it shows some funny stuff in there. It requires every entity that generates solid waste must have containers and promptly place solid waste in them as city specifies. So the size of the containers, the location of the containers, where we're going to put them, reasonable duration, those are things that are in our city code. Not very robust, but that's what's in there. It points out that the disposed solid waste is governed by state law and county health regulations. We already talked about that. And in 1992, the city had the right to require source separation. It said the city has specified source separation back in 1992. Now it's state law. We probably want to change that code, but we're not out of compliance with state law. It also says yard waste can't go into trash or recycling. That was done prior to 1992. Seems like it was just the other day, but that's indeed something that's happened to our code. In there, it specifies we can contract for waste recycling service up to 7 years, and we'll talk about that more later, but that's in our code. You cannot have a contract for longer than 7 years right now. It says the contractor has to maintain safe and legal disposal sites or contract for the same. And all properties, all of our people who live in Mill Creek or operate in Mill Creek as businesses, they have the right to use the service, but they're not required to use that. Our code, again, 8.04 as it stands. Then I talk about our present contract. It's with Waste Management. Waste Management's changed their name now to WM, so I will say both, but really WM is their name, and I should remember to say that. The original contract ran from, the contract we've got that we're in right now, ran from mid-2015 to June 30th of 2022. You may remember that was during a lot of things that were going on. COVID, it disrupted a lot of supply chain things. China was making determinations they didn't want the poorly separated recyclables from here. Shipping costs were high. So at that time, we decided to amend that contract and add another 2 years to it. So we're going to come to the end of that in June 30th of 2024, which is quite a ways out, but typically it takes 15 to 18 months to go through the RFP and contracting implementation process because they've got to come up with new trucks or new containers or all kinds of things. So it's a long process. There are choices we have. We could elect to self-perform. Some cities do their own trash services. Marysville does their own trash, contracts with somebody else for recycling. We could contract to have that done. So we would be the receivers of revenue from people and then contract with somebody to provide that services. We can provide a franchise, and that's essentially what we've got now. You as a council can pick a franchise agreement with an organization that says, here's the prices you will charge, here's the way you perform that business, but you have the rights to do that within our city. Or you could just do nothing. I don't know if anybody does this anymore, but you could default to Utilities and Transportation Commission. If you go out in the unincorporated county, UTC rates prevail. That's not a very attractive thing for a city. Those rates are typically higher. The service is usually worse. So we, as a city, most cities typically want to say, we'll have a little more control on this for whatever purposes, if nothing else, to protect the rates and the service that's provided to your citizens. Okay, elements of our present contract. It is 70-something pages. I put it in there for your reading pleasure. You don't have to read it. I've read it several times and I still more to learn. But basically there's single family residential, there's multifamily residential, and there's commercial or institutional kinds of customers out there. Single family residential doesn't mean just a single family lot. It also includes the duplexes, the condominiums. It's where there is not a collective container. So multifamily is you all take it, put it in one container, and the apartment complex deals with it. If you are in a duplex, the fact that you're connected to your neighbor, you still have your own trash containers. So that's all in the single family residential rates. We have source separated materials, we have trash, we have recyclables, the typical kinds of things there. And we have organics that includes food waste. You're allowed to put food waste into your organics. In our methods, depending on whether you're at a house or an apartment building or a business, it's going to be carts. The roving carts we've all got at our homes. own homes, containers. Sometimes there's bundles you can do, sometimes there's special pickups. All those things are covered in our contract. Right now, our schedule is daily, Monday through Friday. A number of years ago, it was just a couple of days, but now it's spread out. It helps them in terms of logistics. So different areas of the city get picked up on different days. You could do on-call bulky waste. That could be any day. You call them up, say, I've got a refrigerator to take away or a sofa to take away. They can do that on on-call basis. Our holiday schedule is specified in there. Basically, it's the day after. So they end up running one day late that week, or they catch up along the way. There's things in the contract about inclement weather. Basically, if there's enough danger to operate the trucks in hilly terrain, they will not operate the trucks, and it defaults to just skipping to the next week and put out twice as much. So that's specified in our contract. It talks about special event support. If we got an event, we can get them to do various things. Talks about reduced rates and special conditions for seniors, disabled. I should say the senior is also senior low income the way it is right now. It's not just seniors. I saw John and I are both going, yeah, deal. Nope. Senior, it's senior in low income and senior, or also disabled folks. There's things in there about performance during a labor disruption. 1 week, basically, they can do like similar to an inclement weather. Beyond that, there are fines specified for it. They would potentially have to bring containers to town if it was multiple weeks, and people could take their trash or recyclables to a big container and put it in there. And again, there's fines involved in that. It's a little bit of impetus for the franchisee to help us make sure we don't have things piling up. Things about spillage, things about building design review. When a new building is getting built, they review and say, can our trucks get to this container? Can they pick it up? More things, talks about customer service levels, talks about reports they have to provide, talks about performance fees if they miss customers, all kinds of things. Just, the drivers are rude, etc. There's all kinds of things. And to be honest, we have not had the staff or the time to really micromanage that. But in general, our current contract is we have very few customer complaints. It's on the order of 10 to 15 per month. And most of them are, I think you missed my delivery, and they come back and pick it up. But we do have performance fees specified in our contract for a whole level of things that are short of our performance expectations. The contractor can refuse contaminated containers. You remember a couple of years ago, they wanted to say, hey, let's put a fine in place if people have contamination. And we as a council said at the time, no, we don't want to change that. But they do have the ability in our present contract to refuse it. The driver could look at this and say, there's too much stuff in there that is not appropriate. You put yard waste in the trash and I can see it and I'm not going to pick it up. So they have that capability already. I was not aware of that, but that's in there. It talks about rates. There typically is a CPI adjustment to the rate for the delivery part, for the collection part of it. The rate for what's called the tipping fees, what the county charges by ton, is typically also a derivative. They've got a part of their rate, I should say, that's part of it is based on weight. That's what the county charges for the trash. And the part of it is based on the collection. And the collection has a CPI built into it. The rate on the county depends on what the county charges, and those both roll through to customers on a regular basis. It talks about the containers they provide, talks about the vehicles they will use in very general terms, and it talks about disposal sites. Oh, I think I can. Yeah.
The original contract was 5 years, and that's when WM came to us. They made assumptions when they entered into the contract about what they were able to get for recyclables at the time. And they came back to us because their world had changed and their margins went from this down to this because China wasn't accepting a lot of the recyclables. And we at the time said, we entered the agreement. Well, let's talk when the agreement gets renewed, expires in 2022. So am I correct? That's why I believe we only had a 2-year contract. When we amended it in 22, we adjusted those rates. But I think WM also would only agree to a 2-year contract because they didn't want to get stuck again with the longer window and having their world change with what they could get on the open market. So that's just a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. The 2 years kind of made sense on both parties.
Gives us more flexibility if we wanted to make changes or have changes.
Yeah, and at the time, some of you were here, you may remember what they did. Yeah, what they did at the time, so just for anybody else to listen, what they did at the time is they looked at other recent contracts that had come up, and they convinced us that the increment they were asking was reasonable. In fact, it was less still than they'd had new contracts in other similar cities. So we said, this is still a good deal, still a good partner, but they also asked for some other things like fees for contamination. We said, no, thanks on that. And therefore we agreed on a 2-year extension. Yeah, single family. So curbside collection, same day for all 3 services. Think about that. It's probably a good idea, but you could split that up if you wanted to, or a provider might care to split that up if they had a smaller crew, smaller trucks. Our trash is done on a weekly basis. You can have a 10, 20, 35, 45, 64, 96 gallon cart, and you're charged by the size of that cart. They charge you by size, but really think about it, it's mostly weight. What they pay for is weight, but also volume. The recycling, again, is also weekly. It's included with our trash, the way it's priced right now. You don't pay separately for recycling. We made a decision in the last contract to say you pay for the amount of trash you've got and you get recycling. And you can have a 35, 45, or 96 cart, depending on what size you want to have, but sit in your garage or the side of your house, but you get as much recycling as you want. Basically, you could even have more. You can have an extra bundle. You could even have a larger cart, I believe, for the same price. So we're not really charging for recycling. Remember that the initiative was to, there's economic value. They're going to take it and sell it for money. They'd love to have more recycling. Organics right now, it's weekly and it's optional. We decided on optional because we had those folks who lived in a condo or a townhome and had the gardener come and mow the yard. They didn't feel like they needed recycling for organics, so that made it an optional service. I would say it's, I can't remember the number, it's about 50-50 right now between people taking the full service. I mow my own yard, I have my own sticks, I put that in there, and people who don't have that. And that is, again, a 35, 64, 96 gallon cart and includes food waste. You can put that in there. Extras that people get charged for, extra trash and extra charge. Remember, that's the most expensive thing to get rid of. Recyclables, no limit. Organics, you can have 2 bundles or cans at no extra charge. And contamination right now is an education, an oops tag, or they can refuse it, but there's no fines involved. Multifamily and commercial are really the same. You think about them differently, but they're on the same rate chart. The contractor provides the carts or various cubic yard size containers, or you can rent a drop box even bigger than that. The container price is included in the 1 to 4 cubic yards. Above that, you're renting the drop box and then paying for the volume. Customers can provide their own containers. So some apartment complexes have various other containers they use. They just have to be something that can be picked up. The trash is scheduled. As I said, there's paid for by volume. Recycling is also as scheduled, so it may not be the same day in an apartment complex, and it's included at up to 200% of the trash volume. So again, we made a decision in the last contract to have recycling be free, included as part of the trash. Organics are optional, and most of our multifamily and commercial customers in the city of Mill Creek do not take organics. And contamination, interestingly, is not specified in the current contract. So while they can look at Councilmember Paddock's thing when they dump it, they can see that he put plastic bags in his trash, sorry, but they spotted that. They don't have a way really as easily to do that in a large container. I think that's something we could talk to a provider about what we want to do and how important it is to us. They may want to talk about how important it is to them, but right now our existing contract doesn't talk about that contamination for the larger customers. On-call bulky waste, drop box service. You can have a drop box brought to your house that's provided in the contract. You can have temporary service. I'm going to be here for a little bit of time, or I want something extra. You can do that. Special event service. We can say we're going to have a special event like a community-wide cleanup, and we could negotiate that or deal with that as part of this contract. Our city service is included. A reasonable amount of trash, recycling, organics is included in our contract. Is just built in, so our citizens are paying for the trash here at City Hall, which comes from the community, should point out. They've got right now in the contract 2 community sponsored events per year. But they've been a little bit loose about that. I think there have been more events per year where they provided trash and recycling carts for us, like Extravaganza and the festival and other events. I see our special events people, they've been very nice about that. Some communities might use this to say, let's have a community trash cleanup day. Everybody put out your stuff on this Saturday on your curb and go nuts. And we could put that in the contract, that kind of thing. Typically, the collection is free and we pay the disposal cost. Again, with WM, I'm not sure they charged us for the festival. The bulk, the amount is not that much. It's more the loaning is the carts and rolling them. That is part of our contract right now. And this was important. I remember last time we talked about this contract 9 years ago or 7 years ago, people want to have this vacation hold. So there's allowed to have 2 vacation holds, 1 to 3 months each. So you can't call up and say, I just want to shut my service off for 2 weeks. But you can do a snowbird thing and go twice a year somewhere else and shut off your service. Residential and multifamily / commercial fee schedules are very extensive. They're very complicated, but and I mentioned before, they've got annual CPI increases for the collection services and periodic adjustment for the county disposal fees. They are allowed to change disposal sites if they need to, and the current contract says to be a good faith discussion about adjusting pricing. So for instance, if they couldn't take the compost to Everett anymore and needed to take it to Stanwood, they could come and say, it's going to cost us a lot more. We just can't find a place to put it close. We need to sit down and talk about what the impact was going to be in the pricing. They have the opportunity to do that without coming to us and changing the pricing. But if they wanted to say, we're going to have to truck it further, right now the contract says, let's talk about that. I put down there HB 1799. That's the topic for a different day. It turns out in the 2022 session of the legislature, it was made mandatory that organics will be required for everybody, basically. Because of where we are and the size of city we are. What that's going to do is it's going to phase in over a period of time, but it's also, so all of us as residents will have to have organics at some point. I think it's 2025 or 6, I can't remember right now. But our commercial customers will also have to have that, depending on the volume they have of organics. So you can picture a restaurant might have quite a bit of organics, a lawyer's office might not. But so it'll be based on the amount of organics they generate for the first couple of years. And then after that, it'll be based on the total amount of trash they generate. So organics are being required. This is the state is trying to reduce food waste for waste purposes, but also because reducing that food waste that goes in organics is what is impact on greenhouse gases. So that's a greenhouse gas driven thing and also a food waste driven thing that our state legislature gave to us in 2022. And I can apologize on behalf of staff that we didn't notice this until I started talking to various providers. They said, how are you doing with 1799? What's it called? Compost procurement ordinance. And we have to change our rules to say we're going to attempt to use compost in our own city that comes from our own city. And it's going to be a tough thing to do to make it happen really the way the legislature's envisioned it. But cities are adopting these, and we'll adopt this when we amend code 8.04. As I mentioned before, the performance fees for various things that are in the contract right now. And finally, there's an administrative fee. So it is pure pass through. You look at it on your bill, you see a 1.5% administrative fee. It's not a utility tax. Money doesn't go to them. It's just, we said we would like to get 1.5% of the gross collections as an administrative fee for staff to keep track of this work on the next contract. And we've set that at 1.5%. That's very low. Some other cities are as high as 5, 6, 7, 8%. I can't remember which city was. I think it's Mercer Island's like 8%, and they're funding a full-time person to manage their contract. Other cities you can imagine would be doing that. So that's an option you will have, is to decide what you want to do. And you can change that. At least right now, our contract says you can change that during the period of the contract through a certain process. Just to want to show you an example, this is what it ends up looking like. And you can see the disposal fee. Remember that the tonnage that we're going to send to the county that gets put in the landfill. The collection fee is what does it cost them to drive to your house, collect it, and then recycle various items. And so those two together make up your rate. So if you got one 32-gallon garbage cart once per month, it costs you $8.18 a month. That's what that chart does. And there's also a similar chart for the commercial. Next steps. So we have a choice. We could do a request for proposal from various providers that are out there, or we could do a direct negotiation with our current provider And one of the things I want to hear from you is what's important about that, two different approaches. If you think about our existing provider already knows the city pretty well, they already have trucks in place, they already have containers in place. Continuing with them would be one direction to go. There are other providers. So right now we're WM. Recology also operates somewhat in this area and has some interest. Republic is another big one that operates in other cities around here. And Rubatino, we used to think of as only Everett, but Rubatino is now connected with Cedar Grove composting folks, and they might be interested in this as well. So there's potentially, could be many, could be only one, but there's probably four, at least that I've heard from, that could potentially bid on our franchise if we'd like to. So really, I want you to think about what's important for the next contract. We can discuss it tonight. You can think about it, get back to me, but over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna have to decide, do we go out on the street, put together an RFP, maybe with some help from a consultant, or do we want to engage in direct negotiation? But as I said before, with that 15 to 18 months to implement a new contract, particularly if it's a new provider, they need to get trucks, need to get new containers potentially, those kinds of things.
Didn't we ask for some kind of proposal or framework from WM to get a sense of where they're at before we decided whether we wanted to go out for an RFP?
I do not recall that. It doesn't mean it.
Okay, I just, for some reason, I thought that we asked them to kind of give us where they're at, what they would be asking for, so we could just make a decision, and then I thought had a discussion.
Right. Yeah, so I don't want to run amok of various procurement laws, and I'm not an expert on this, so I'm going to be careful here. But I think that would be, there's an opportunity to do the direct negotiation. Maybe there's a possibility, I'm just speculating, the possibility to have a discussion with WM about what they might be able to do. And then maybe you can decide that doesn't sound so great. Let's go to the open market. But we'd have to do that fairly expeditiously. If we spent 9 months dancing with WM, we would run out of time for other people to respond and have the trucks and the containers in place. I will say the containers that we have right now at our homes are, per our contract, do need to be, we could decide to take ownership of those and gift those to a new provider. But those would be the carts that we have without the stickers for whoever new provider would be. But that is a possibility. That is one of the long lead items.
It's like that's why it wasn't picked up, but those are extraneous circumstances.
Yeah, you're saying we've had pretty good service with WM. It's not been, we have not received a lot of complaints.
Would it be possible to go back to WM and say, rather than go out to the general market first, by this date, we'd like to get from you to see what it would take.
I think that is possible.
And if they get back to us by that date, then we can look at what they would offer. If they don't, then we're going to go ahead and go to the open market. If they don't.
Yeah, so I'll do a little bit of strategy here, and that's what we're thinking about. If you do that and they say our best offer is X% more than what it is today, and we go like, oh gosh, that sounds like a lot. You won't necessarily know what the marketplace is.
Right.
Other cities have developed new contracts over the last few years. You could look at those, but every city is a little bit different. Our configuration of our city is a little bit different than somebody has very orthogonal streets. So hard to compare city to city, but that is a possibility. You might say this sounds pretty good. Let's just work really hard on negotiating with our existing provider, or you just don't want to get in that point where you don't know, you want to shop some more and you haven't given yourself enough time to shop.
I think the really value is staying with your supplier that's been good to you, that is providing service. And it's within the SMPI and within other, constraints that you're looking at. We may want to just stay with them, but if it's way outside of that, then it might be in our best interest, the best interest of our city, to go ahead and take a look at Republic and maybe a couple of others that we know in the past have expressed an interest in coming over and providing us this service.
Yes.
Yeah. There is about, it. They know our streets, they know our city, they know, yeah.
We know each other and there,
Right,
yeah.
and if it's not, if it's within certain constraints, we're gonna wanna stay. And I think they know that too. It's theirs to lose.
The thing, so again, this is difficult to do, but I guess I'm asking, look at those bullets. Are there any things there in particular that you think we'd like to change? I will tell you that I'll tell you my own personal bias. There might be some cities who said, geez, we really want to be really, really green. Let's mandate electric garbage trucks. I'm going to recommend that you don't do that because those would be really expensive garbage trucks. Let's not be the pioneers on electric garbage trucks, but some communities might do that. Ours right now just says, keep your vehicles clean. And we're using free market system to say, you guys pick the fuel system that makes it the most efficient for you to give us the best price. We are kind of in that mode where we're a value kind of approach as opposed to the greenest possible approach at the expense of higher rates, potentially higher rates. I might say in a next contract, you might do things like that, but right now, I think that's what you'd be paying a premium for that. One of the things I put down there, I personally think if we went to a 10-year contract, that lines up with the age of vehicles. People will give you a better contract if they have to buy new trucks. 10 years for a truck to get amortized is probably better than 7. And so again, we would have to go back and change our code to allow something longer than 7 years. But I would think we should consider a 10-year option, a 10-year contract, or 10-year plus some options or things like that.
The only part I think it's, I would think about going back to them is in the contract when the snow hits, they don't show up unless we have really bad snow. And there was 2 weeks where they didn't show up. And yet we paid for their service and we never get a contract discount. We never get a credit. That doesn't seem quite right to me, to the citizens that pay their service and they don't show up for even a week. You know, why wouldn't they? They're not paying the drivers for that week. They're not getting paid.
They probably are.
I think there's.
I don't know. Is there?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah,
But that's something we could negotiate. Remember, right now, our contract says 1 week for inclement weather, not a problem. More than that, there could be penalties and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's a factor we could put in there.
Mike, I'd like to, I'm very happy with this. So I don't want to give a different impression, but my question is, I realize we're very happy with them, but should we go out and get other bids to make sure we're being pleased with our taxpayer dollars and we're getting the best deal for the best. So I'm kind of hesitant to not go out and get more quotes just because I want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to for the rest. I'm very happy with the management. They've done a great job for us. The drivers wave it for us every single week. She looks forward to it. But I just want to make sure that we're not just jumping with them because we like them. If there may be something that's a competitor that's just as good but less expensive.
Good points. Did I see somebody down there looking to speak?
I was like, wait.
The puck is going up. Are there certain, our diversion rate right now is pretty good. Could be better. Again, I don't know that it makes sense to specify that. We might want to specify a certain more community outreach, more education, or maybe that would have been available to us if we would have had a staff member who was spending a bunch of time on this. Some of us who have been around for a long time, I remember Tom Gathman years where we worked with waste management to try to be the best at recycling of certain size communities, and we didn't make it, but there was a contest for that purpose. And we lost out to some very tight planned communities who couldn't do it. But we could take that on ourselves and have an initiative to be more environmentally sustainable or whatever. You wouldn't have to put it in the contract. Again, some cities have said they're going to put those things in the contract. I'm not sure if it makes sense to specify those things. It makes it difficult to get a good price when you do that. The 4 different providers are telling me I'm already about a month late. That's just staff capacity limited. I have a limited amount of time to put into this. I really think that if folks said, you thought of something in the next week, after a week, I contend that you probably won't be thinking about it again. So if you think of something between now and next week, you want to send an email, give us a call, or talk about it again next week. If you had some revelations you'd like to talk about as a group about hold it, what makes sense in terms of sustainability or cost or value or services or customer service things. Having a discussion next week and then sending staff off to go work on that would be great. I do have, I'll tell you, the last time we did this, there was an individual who did a lot of contracts for people. His contracts are very long. That's why our contract is 70 pages. I'm not content, not recommending we use him again. In fact, he's retiring. But there is another individual who I've heard of is available to do some consulting work. And there's somebody who's an ex-employee of one of these companies who was also an ex-council member of a city who was also available to consult with. And so I probably will recommend that we do some small contract to talk to them about getting some advice, because I'm not an expert at this. This is a big decision. This is on the order of about a $3 million contract per year. So it's a significant amount of money for our citizens. Again, we've got a really good rate. Our rate is better than most of our other neighboring cities. We can't expect that to go on again. If they're going to look at what's going to happen in the next 10 years, they're going to price it. Any of these vendors are going to price it according to what they think is going to happen. And who takes the risk depends on what you pay for in price. So long answer to your question, but I think if we had some thoughts in the next week, that'd be great. We could, if there's any thoughts, we collect them quickly next week, and then we would go off and try to put together either an RFP we put out on the street and get going on that quickly. Or if you say, no, let's just go direct negotiation, we'll go down that path. Oh, good. Thank you very much, Council. Right.
We can't hear the mayor.
Oh, so the suggestion was he's going to connect with Vince and the council members by next week, no later than the end of this week, let's say. Email me if you've got any comments or questions or concerns, so we could bring those up next Tuesday, have one final discussion, and decide where to go. About right. Thank you, appreciate it.
Consent agenda is one item tonight. City Council regular meeting minutes of April 11th, 2023. Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved 6-0. City manager reports.
I just have one report, Mayor. Just had a quarterly meeting with the North Creek Rotary, and so I just wanted to just mention that it was just a quarterly update, kind of what we accomplished the first quarter, kind of what we're planning going forward. So first meeting with them, and it was productive, and they're happy I was there. But it's another move in the right direction of continuing to meet with partners and get feedback on kind of their thoughts on how the city's doing, and also we get best practices from them too. There are a lot of actually Rotary members that are members of both clubs, so it's nice to see them contributing on both ends of the Rotary Club spectrum. So that's all I have there, and I'll hand it off to our IT manager, who will talk about his ARPA funded project.
Mayor Pro Tem, council, citizens, staff, thank you for letting me speak about the telephone system project that we have some movement on, but I'd like to first speak to the elephant in the room. If you were not aware of what's going on, we had a hardware malfunction in our new system, and since it's a new system, I don't know exactly what needs to be rebooted or fixed. I put in an emergency call to the vendor, haven't heard back from them. I will find out more tomorrow and get this fixed. So February 7th, council passed the adoption of ordinance approving the use of ARPA funds for proposed projects. And in that was a $20,000 earmarking for the telephone system. Our current telephone system is not supported by the manufacturer. We had horrible faxing issues not too long ago. We were lucky enough to get a component replaced in that system to get things back working. So this is a much needed project. The RFP will be, I pushed out the dates a little bit to give us some time, but the RFP will be issued June 1st. So think of June as when the RFP action will be going on for the telephone system. And then we hopefully have an apparent vendor to select in July. And then hopefully parts will get ordered, system deployed September or Q4. That's the report.
Are there any questions about the phone system? No, no more reports, Mayor. Thank you.
Question.
Just an item for me, on 1628, the Blake decision is a little follow-up. As you know, that if the state doesn't adopt something by June 30th, then it falls on the local jurisdictions to take action. So I had forwarded a letter the coalition had sent around asking for mayors to agree to sign on. Never mind. I'm not going to ask you to for approval to sign on to it for a couple of reasons. The letter basically says that if the legislature doesn't act, local jurisdictions are, but it basically supports the county council's proposed ordinance, which I think they're taking up in the next couple of days. I don't want us to get into debate on the county ordinance, especially since the Governor Inslee just called a special session for May 16th. So hopefully this issue will get resolved. And also, if you read the letter, I did trade messages with John Neering. I asked him to make a change to it, and in light of us weak mayors, not to reflect that the letter is being submitted on behalf of the 16 mayors. Even if we don't sign on, I don't want it implying that we've signed on to it. So he thought that was a good comment and was going to make that change. So hopefully the legislature will come through in the next couple of weeks. So that is all I had tonight. Mayor Pro Tem, any report?
Oh, I'm so good using the microphone. Actually, no report. You covered what I was going to say, so I'm good.
Councilmember Steckler.
We're playing game night. A couple things. First of all, I wanted to make a quick plug. This weekend is the City of Mill Creek and Kiwanis Club's recycle event. Will be this Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. City Hall North, right next door over there. Please spread the word. Get all of your friends and family and neighbors to bring any and all of their electronic recyclables that are no longer electronicable anymore. We will take them and get them off their hands and protect them from putting them in the wrong trash container. Keep us on good with waste management. Also, we just want to give a quick update. The Arts and Beautification Board had their meeting last week. A couple great things happened. City manager came and gave everybody a great update on what's happening with the city and all of our different activities and elements that's going on. And the deputy city manager was there as well and went through all of the ARPA board approved projects with the board and graciously offered her services to help them go through the process of getting all of those budgeted and get bids on all of those so that we can move ahead
and find out the correct pricing and costing issues so we can move ahead with, especially the most important one, which was the signage for our city, which I know is near and dear to everybody's heart, but also all the other projects as well. So we had a very good A&B meeting. First start, it's baby steps. We got a lot of projects to go through, but a good meeting. That's it. Who's next, Mayor? Oh, good. Give it to Councilman Pettit.
No report.
I got a nice open chair right here.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a couple of things. The Senate Bill 5352, which is the pursuit fix, it's scheduled to be signed tomorrow in Pasco. And the mayor already mentioned this, but there is a special session that will begin on 5/15 with the goal of creating a drug possession law that would cover the state void that will occur on July 1st. So that's a good thing. And I hope that they come to a consensus and can pass something that can cover the entire state and not create a patchwork across our whole state. It'll be a mess. There was also a press release to that regard on that particular bill that the city published. It's on the website and it was released on 4/28. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, you can read that press release. And that is all for me. Thank you.
Councilmember McKay, name and address.
It makes me laugh because I'm not even on camera, which makes it, oh, Vince's desk is really nice. For anyone who can't hear me.
Come back in.
All those
Yeah.
granddaughter pictures down
Yeah,
here.
just add mine. Yes, I had a couple updates. I wanted to just let staff know that Councilmember Cavallari asked me to step in for the Parks and Recreation Board meeting. He sent me a text while we were in our meeting. So I will be on that. So happy to connect if you guys are doing that same type of presentation to Parks and Rec like you did for Arts and Beautification. Speaking of Arts and Beautification, I attended this is my personal or what I just do. It's the Snohomish County. I can't remember the name, the arts, I have to, CAN members is what they call ourselves. Anyways, there was a wonderful presentation that was given. It's a monthly group and it's made of both representatives from the Snohomish County Arts Commission, but also from people from like the Everett Philharmonic. There's different groups, those that provide, just some people are just musicians who attend because they're always looking. And so there was a great presentation from the Economic Alliance Snohomish County in terms of a creative economy. I shared my notes with a city manager about some of the things I flagged in case anything sparks interest. And my quick look through the strategic plans that were shared, I saw some had a focus on arts and vitality. And so I think that's definitely something interested in and as a reminder for that. And I'd love to connect with Councilmember Steckler about this. And I think I say it each month until it rolls around and it gets there. Also flagging what Councilmember Allison said about the statement that's on the website. I'm really appreciative for those of you who saw that the legislative committee put together that statement. I think it's I just wanted that kind of to be a highlight about like what we can do as a group and how we can move forward and be proactive in these statements. And so thank you for everyone who was involved in that and in terms of the legislative agenda. We have our legislative committee meets tomorrow. So we'll be going through that. And this is more of a me, because I feel like I don't toot my own horn sometimes. So I just wanted to say, I was surprised last Friday with the Golden Acorn Award for volunteer for my PTA. It was a huge surprise. I know normally you don't say these kind of things someone talks about for you, but as a woman, I think it's important that we take our own ownership about when we deserve a pat on the back. So there's a big PTA of Everett School District event where everyone will be honored, including all the educators, and that'll be in a couple weeks at Jackson. And I think it's pretty cool. So anyway, so I'll be there. Oh, thank you guys.
Were there some sort of library awards also that were?
Libraries?
No,
that was it. That was it. Yeah, because I was surprised. I was volunteering at the library, and then they tricked me into coming in to do book inventory, and it said it was that.
Anyways, that's all my report. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Old Nickern's a big deal.
Yes.
Okay, we'll close out with audience communication. Oh, one more. You said you were.
Sorry. Director Todd told me. So I just wanted to quickly report that the filing period for the commissioner opening is through the 15th through the 19th. I was trying to look up the map online. I couldn't find it, but we can provide you it's the northwest corner of our city. And so, and I'm not sure I actually how to file, so we could figure out that information if somebody's interested, but just to let you know that the filing period is the 15th to the 19th of this month. Fire commissioner. So.
We're in District 4 and 5. 4.
District 4, is it someone who's running again? The current,
I think they're new.
So they walk up there. And you won't know.
oh.
Also, isn't this a new district with the annexation?
I thought
So there's.
we
So there's 5 districts. They redistricted. Remember, we talked about that. And the redistricting ended up with Mill Creek being in 2 districts, 4 and 5. 4 has, remember, fire commissioners are 6-year terms. So District 4 is the cycle to come up. And so that's why you have to have lived in District 4 to be able to run for an office in District 4, would be part of Mill Creek and a whole bunch of other stuff kind of north and west of us. And that if you go to the South County Fire website and look under districts, there's a map. And if somebody was really close to a line, they could send a message to the commissioner's support person, Melissa Blankenship. She could say, hey, are you in or out? But you can zoom in on the map and you can tell pretty closely which you're in if somebody wanted to run for that. We just want to make it aware that that's an opportunity. And if you think about the election that we talked about last week, the mayor brought last week, that both Briar and Montlake Terrace are going to join. So the districts are going to change again, but that'll take a whole other year, just like we've been doing this where we've had a liaison for a year. It'll be the same thing for them. So this will be an assignment for District 4, and then those districts may change again. But this, if somebody wants to run, this is a chance to file for election.
Okay, on communication, anyone in chambers, anyone online? Seeing none, one more report for tonight. We can get home in time to see the Kraken and see if they can hold on to their 4-2 lead at the end of the second. So if there's no objection, we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:19 p.m. See everyone next week.